Hi everyone, this is Heather Estes and I am the teacher for our U.S. History course for Explorers to the War of 1812. This week we talked about the Bill of Rights, amendments to the Constitution of the United States created in 1791. So I'm going to turn my camera around and show you what we would have worked on and finished in class had my internet not given out on me again, but thankfully we have YouTube, so you get to see and hear me again. Here's what we basically were working on in class, and here's a heads up of what we're checking out online. If you want to check out anything on our updated information for our course, we're doing Canvas, of course. If you check out Canvas and look at the assignments, the pages, the modules, all of this will be posted there. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we had 3 different sets of papers that were given to us. I sent you this paper that says the Bill of Rights, written in modern language, and it gives the 10 amendments, the 10 first amendments to the United States Constitution, and what they mean in modern language, meaning like language you can understand. And then we had the group activity page. We had different group members that we fortunately were able to do the breakout rooms, the rooms for Zoom. That worked fairly well. We read some of these scenario cards, which I'll get to together, and then we figured out which amendment they represented, and then we had to decide, okay, were the people's rights respected or not respected according to the rights given in the amendments to the Constitution. So these are rights that we have today that pertain to every single one of you and me too, and I wanted to make sure we understood them. So there were 2 scenario card pages. I just did mine back and front. I'm going to eventually just stick this inside of my interactive notebook. I can fold it up if I want, or staple it, glue it, whatever you want to do. It's up to you. My job right now is to review these amendments with you, tell you where we were left off in our scenarios, and go through each scenario and see which amendment it does. So we're going to take a few minutes to do that right now. So if you have this in front of you and you're working on it for the first time, I'm going to check out the amendments first and then check out the group activity. Okay, so each amendment, an amendment means a change. We had to make changes to the Constitution because there were some holes missing there. So what people wanted to do was make sure this was very clear for everyone later in life when they were living as a citizen in the United States. So the Bill of Rights was approved in 1791. The first 10 amendments are changes to the Constitution. These are our rights and they protect our rights as Americans. There's Amendment 1. As you can see, it's the longest and biggest one. We have a lot of rights according to this amendment. So you can read it, but I'll read it for you here. This is also the first amendment because of this amendment, we have the right to practice any religion we choose or not. We have the right to say what we would like in most cases. We have the freedom to print our opinions in newspapers, books, and magazines. Citizens are allowed to sign petitions and present them to the government. Americans are allowed to join together and peacefully in groups of any size. So we can do protesting if we need to. We have to do it peacefully, of course. We can decide that we don't like what someone else is saying in our country or in government. We can tell them our opinion. They may not like it, but it's something they have to respect. And we can gather in groups, of course. We can practice religion, any religion, and not be thrown in jail because of it. Or we can choose to not do anything. It's up to us. It's up to us and our family. So that's the First Amendment alone. The Second Amendment, it says we have the right to own guns. One friendly parent who helped us during our class was able to say this very clearly. She said, what's funny, in the Constitution it actually says we have the right to bear arms. Now you don't need to bear your arms, that's not what it means, but we have the right to own guns or not own guns. It's up to us. At the time this was created in 1790s, people had a law if they could own guns or not. So they wanted to make sure everyone had the right to do that, and this is still protected today. We have Amendment 3. Americans cannot be forced to let soldiers live in their homes. So at the time, this was a problem. The army needed places to stay for people who were in the military. And if someone has a big house, they said, oh, well, you have room. Soldiers can live there. And we said, no way, find your own space. So this amendment protects that. Number 4 says, the amendment protects our privacy. The police cannot search your body or property without a warrant from the judge, meaning like permission from a judge to make sure it's okay that they come and search your property, like your house or your car or even just whatever you have on you. They're not allowed to search you unless they have cause. Okay, number 5. Someone said, this is a big one too, you can protect yourself from crime and you can plead the 5th. This is the 5th Amendment. We have the right to a fair, legal trial if we are accused of a crime. You don't have to say things in court that show you are guilty of a crime. Meaning like if you want to keep that information to yourself, you can. It's up to you. Amendment 6, we have the right to a speedy and public trial. Not that it's like, who is this person, you did it, you get it, okay, all done. No, it doesn't mean to have to be speedy fast, but it has to be an okay amount of time. You can't wait years and years and years to be said guilty or not guilty. You should not have to wait many years for your trial to start. Yeah. Amendment 7, you have the right to a jury trial in private cases, like when you are suing someone. The amount of damage must be more than $20. So you have a right to a jury. A jury is a group of people that get together along with the judge to tell them whether they think you are guilty or not based on the evidence, or whether that person that you're going against is guilty or not based on evidence. There is a limit, $20. Okay, so you have a right for bringing people together to sue or to come against someone in the case of $20 or more. It's up to you. In this amendment for number 8, in this amendment, cruel and unusual punishment is outlawed. Also, if you are charged with a crime, the judge cannot set an unreasonable bail amount. So just briefly, this means cruel and unusual punishment, torture, and weird ways of punishing people still existed at the time when this was created after the Constitution in the 1790s and early 1800s. People, for example, if you stole something, in some countries, they cut your hand off. You weren't allowed to steal again. Or you were branded with something. So in our case, we said, no, that's called cruel and unusual punishment. That's not okay. They'll have to pay a fine. They'll go to jail, things like that. That has to be more civilized punishment. The punishment that fits what we were doing. Also, if you're charged with a crime, they can't set unreasonable bail amount, meaning if you are allowed to pay amount of money to get out of jail, the judge can't say, oh, you can get out of jail if you pay us $100 billion. No, that's not a reasonable amount. Sometimes they set it very high, though, at like $250,000 or $1 million if it's really hard. But, the bail amount still has to be there, just reasonable. Okay, last two we have is number 9. This amendment tells us that Americans have the right that are not listed in the Constitution. This was interesting. Just because the people's rights are not written down, every single right inside of the Constitution, doesn't mean that it's not there. We gave an example in class. We are breathing. We are listening with our ears. We can drink water if we want to. We can use the restroom if we have to. We can eat food from our house. These are rights that we have as people. Now, it's not written in the amendments or the Constitution, but it's a given right. It's made sense. So they made an amendment here that says just because it's not written doesn't mean it's not a right to you. So we have to think about that. Last but not least, Amendment 10. Power that was not given to the United States government by the Constitution actually belongs to the states or to the people. If you didn't realize this, we have a federal government, and then every single of the 50 states have their own state government. We have California government, there's Nevada state government, Texas, Rhode Island, Hawaii, Alaska. They all have their own state governments and their own constitutions and laws. So we follow our county, our city, our state governments as well as the federal government that has the United States Constitution and these Bill of Rights. So whatever the power is not listed there, we have to talk to our own governments to lead us from that. Okay, so for example, something that we're dealing with right now is being stuck at home. That was an order given by each state. In our state of California, we're following that order. Is that an order given from the federal government? No, not for every single state. It was up to us. So that was power given to the state or the people. That's an example there. Okay, so just to review, this is the Bill of Rights that was written in 1791. The first changes or amendments to the Constitution of the United States, written in modern language for us to understand. Okay, moving on here, we have to look at some scenarios. Okay, so these are the things that we looked at in class together. I'm just going to briefly go over them. There are 10, so I don't want to talk your ear off. These are all posted for you in Canvas for you to read on your own and check out the information together if you'd like to. So I'm going to go over what we did in class and what was assigned to our groups and then move on. So here, we're going to now check out each scenario to see, okay, which amendment does it represent? And were the people's rights respected or not? Okay. So simple enough. So scenario 1, Maria Sanchez and 4 of her friends are visiting with each other in the park. The 5 ladies are quietly talking and laughing. A policewoman approaches the group and tells them that they must separate. Maria argues that the park is still open and that they should be able to talk as long as they like. The officer says that the women must leave the park because they do not have the right to sit together on public property. So in class, we decided that because they're sitting together, laughing and talking in a public park, in a public place, a government person like a policewoman should not have the right to tell them to move on. They can sit at the public park if they want to. Which amendment does this go over? It actually represents the First Amendment. And if you look here, it says Americans are allowed to join together peacefully in groups of any size. So in this case, Maria and her friends need to reference the First Amendment and say, were their rights recognized or not? No, they were disrespected. So here we wrote in scenario 1, it represents amendment number 1. Their rights were not respected. And if you'd like to explain here, you can. We were just doing this quickly in class. Okay, let's move on to number 3 scenario 2 and what this represents. Okay, scenario 2. Bradley Wilson lives alone in a 4-bedroom house that he inherited from his uncle. One day, an Army officer comes to his house and says that the Army is running out of housing for soldiers. Since Bradley has extra empty rooms, the Army officer requires Bradley to house soldiers. Bradley tries to argue his point, but no one will listen to him. 3 soldiers come to live in Bradley's home. This is without his consent. So, scenario 2, what is this talking about in the amendments? It's actually talking about Amendment 3. Americans cannot be forced to let soldiers live in their homes. That means Amendment 3 is represented here. Were their rights respected? No, their rights were not respected. They still had to live in their home with soldiers, even though they didn't want them to be there. So that's something that they could argue against. Okay, I'm going to keep going here quickly. So that was scenario 1 and 2 we did together as a group, and then we started to go into groups, I think, in scenario 4. Let's move on to 3. Jenna Smith is a college student who does not like the governor of her state. She feels that the governor is not doing a good job. Jenna decides to write an article in the newspaper telling why she does not agree with the governor. The governor does not like this article, but she does respect Jenna's right to state her opinion. Okay, so this is a different scenario than the other 2. It seems like Jenna's right is respected. She doesn't like the governor. She writes to the newspaper and tells them that. The governor sees it, but she respects Jenna's right. Okay, so which amendment is this representing? It actually goes back to Amendment 1 again. So, the First Amendment, have the right to practice religion. We have the right to say what we would like in most cases, and we have the freedom to print our opinions in newspapers, books, and magazines. So just because someone doesn't like what this person is saying does not mean that she's allowed to interfere. So people can post their opinions where they'd like, and that doesn't break the law. So was this person's rights respected? Yes. So we would put here, I'm going to use my marker right now. So in scenario 3, the one with this person writing in the article, this represents amendment number 1. Again, were their rights respected? Yes, they were respected, because even though the governor didn't like it, they were still allowed to post it. So there you go. Now moving on to number 4. This was assigned to one group of students, so we'll see where they got with this one. Scenario number 4, Valerie Pachenko is suing the person who damaged her car in an accident. The damages total $245. Valerie goes to court, and the judge tells her that she doesn't want to bring a jury into the case for such a small amount of money. The judge wants Valerie to just forget about the car accident and move on. It doesn't sound like this judge knows the laws very well. So if we look, so the problem is they don't want to bring a jury involved, but she's trying to sue the person for $245, and she wants a jury to help understand what's going on and give her a verdict. So, which one does this represent? So we have to talk about where is the jury. I'm going to scan here, jury, here, jury. So Amendment 7. You have the right to a jury trial in private cases, like when you're suing someone, just like this person. The amount of damage must be more than $20. So I look back here. Is the damage more than $20? Yes, it's $245. So the judge says that she just wants her to forget about it and move on. So in my Bill of Rights activity page, I would say this represents Amendment 7. Were their rights respected? No. She should still be able to get a trial just because that's her amendment right. All right, let's move on to scenario 5. This was also a group activity. This one's tricky. Jason Dean is charged with murder in the shooting death of his former friend. The judge tells Jason that he already thinks he is guilty. Also, Jason will have to wait 3 years before his trial starts. So not only do they don't know if he's guilty or innocent based on his evidence, they don't want to give him a trial for 3 years. Okay, let's look at the amendments and see. Okay, I'm going to look for trial. Trial. Okay, all guns, trial. Okay, so this could be tricky because you have the right to a fair legal trial, but you also have the right to a speedy and public trial. So this one is tricky because you could say 5 or 6. Mostly that would go for 6. So Amendment 6, you have the right to a speedy and public trial. You should not have to wait many years for your trial to start. This person would have had to wait 3 years. So is their right respected? No. And so if I look at scenario 5, I'm going to write Amendment 6 is represented here. Were their rights respected in this case? No. He needs the right to a speedy trial. Okay, 6. Citizens of Indiana are very upset about a law that is being considered in the Indiana state legislature. This law would take away money from the public schools and give it to the governor as a pay increase. 500,000 citizens of Indiana sign a petition and present it to the Indiana state legislature. After discussing the options, the legislature decides to side with the petitioners and leave the money in the public schools where it belongs. Okay, so the main thing we need to remember here, this word petition. When you sign something and say, I agree with you, I want to say that this is something I am against, or I am for this thing. So a petition is the main thing here, and they decided to go with the petitioners, with the people. Okay, so this is also tricky because this is the state of Indiana, so it could be a state thing, but it's also a petition that is signed. So let's see. When you think about it, we could say that it could be 10 because it's given to the state or the people the right to do something. But it doesn't really talk about the federal government in this one. It only talks about the state, and they did go with the petitioners. That's the petition that go against something. It's their right to petition something. These rights were respected, but what right was it? It was actually in Amendment 1 again. It says, we have the right, citizens are allowed to sign petitions and present them to the government. So if they don't like something, if we don't like a law, we can say, hey, we don't like this, we're against this, we're going to sign a petition and present it to you to make changes. And that's what they did here. So in scenario 6, we're going to represent Amendment 1 again. Were their rights respected here? Actually, yes. Great. Okay, we're on 7 now. Moving along. Polly Parker lives alone in her small inner city apartment. She hears reports of break-ins at other apartments close to where she lives, so Polly chooses to purchase a gun. However, when Polly applies to get a license for her gun, the official tells her that women should not carry guns. He denies her gun license and takes away her brand new gun. Well, I'm sure Polly Parker was very afraid, so she decided to have her gun. But that doesn't mean that she gets to have it taken away or denied or said that women shouldn't carry guns. There's a lot of women police officers and there's a lot of women in the military, so that doesn't make sense at all. So, in this scenario, the main thing here is owning a gun. It doesn't matter who you are allowed to have guns. So, whether you agree with them or not, it is a law, so we have to respect that. It says Amendment 2, we have the right to own guns. We, anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. So in this situation, is she allowed to have this gun? No. But is her right respected? No. And according to Amendment number 2, is her right respected here? No. She should be able to own whatever she likes, according to the law. We're on 8 now. Todd Remington is enjoying a nice quiet evening at home with his family. All of a sudden, he hears loud banging on the door. When he answers the door, 15 policemen burst into his house and say that they are going to look for evidence of a crime. Todd asks for their search warrant, but the officers have no search warrant. They continue to search his entire home. Well, the big thing here is search warrant. No one can come into your house unless you give them permission, even the police. So, 15 police people are coming into this person's house without a warrant, and they are trying to find evidence of a crime. So obviously we're seeing this is not a respect of law, but what is the law? Okay, so search warrant. Warrant. Where is the warrant? Okay, so you have a right to a fair trial. That's true. You have a right to privacy. That's the most important thing we're thinking here. Your home is your private place. So, Amendment 4, the amendment protects our privacy. The police cannot search your body or property, like your house, without a warrant from a judge. If you didn't know what a warrant is, it's like a written permission slip paper. So if you have to go into someone's house or you have to ask them permission, you need a written paper that says it's okay, and it has to be signed by a judge. So you can't just get it anywhere. Okay, so is this person's rights respected? No. And we're going to check right here on 8. For which amendment did we just talk about? Okay, that's right. 4. Were their rights respected? No. They need a search warrant to come into that person's home. Okay, we have 2 more. We're almost done. Okay. 9. Jay Harrison is accused of running from the police. The judge hearing this case does not want to take any chances that Jay will run again. So he says that one of Jay's feet must be cut off. Okay, well, even if this person is guilty, there's something about this being cut off. We do not sever people's limbs when we think they have been accused of a crime. So automatically this is cruel and unusual punishment. Which amendment does that represent? 8. In this amendment, cruel and unusual punishment is outlawed, like cutting off someone's foot. Also, if you're charged with a crime, they can't set an unreasonable bail amount. So he can have his feet. We just have to make sure that there's some security that he doesn't run away again. So what does this represent, number 8? So in scenario 9, Amendment 8, cruel and unusual punishment. Was this respected? Unfortunately not. We're not supposed to cut people's feet off, please. Okay, last but not least, number 10. Here we go. Mario Jackson is accused of stealing his neighbor's car. He says he didn't steal the car. The judge doesn't believe him. The judge threatens to put Mario in jail immediately if he doesn't admit he is guilty of the crime. Okay, so he doesn't seem to have much evidence at this point, but he didn't steal it, he says. So he has to have a trial, right? But there's a very interesting thing. What he says he didn't steal the car, the judge doesn't believe him. Our laws, thankfully, are not based on just, beliefs. It is based on evidence. So this person has to have some evidence. So let's move on to here. This one is still a little bit tricky. So you have the right to a jury. You have the right to not have that cruel and unusual punishment. You have the right to a fair trial. You do. And you can't be forced to say something. So this is very tricky. So in this situation, he has many rights here that he has to think about. He has to come up with evidence. He has to have a fair trial. He has to make sure it's speedy, that he has his privacy represented. But the main thing here is that the judge threatens to put him in jail if he doesn't admit that he's guilty. He's trying to get him to just say, okay, I did it, I'm guilty. But he doesn't have to. He has the right to give evidence for himself. So this actually represents the Fifth Amendment, pleading the Fifth. I have the right to a fair legal trial if I'm accused of a crime. You don't have to say things in court to show that you're guilty of a crime. He can plead the Fifth in this scenario. So in our last amendment here, the Fifth Amendment is represented, and where his rights respected? No. He has the right to keep his mouth shut. So that's basically what we went over in class. I didn't have any group members, but if you had group members in class, you can write their names. And again, this is something we can just put inside of our notebooks, whether you want to fold it or glue it down, whatever you'd like. What was helpful in class is being able to work as a group. So I'm going to try and pull you to me again. Hello. Wow, it's been over 20 minutes since I've seen you. Anyway, if you'd like to print these different scenario pages out, you're welcome to. It's not a requirement. There's fortunately no homework with this, so that's helpful to you. Basically, the main things we need to remember about the Bill of Rights is that it gave us rights along with how we should run our country in the Constitution. It made things very clear when it came to things like trials, juries, even just having privacy in your own home, things like that. So when we think about our everyday life, we have to be really thankful that we have these rights. People in other countries sometimes still have cruel and unusual punishment, things that are not carried out well in a trial. They're not allowed to gather in groups, or they're not allowed to practice any religion. Sometimes you're thrown in jail for doing things like that. So we have to think about it. If you have these rights, think about how your life would be if you didn't have them. We're very lucky in that way. So anyway, that was our class for I think it was Tuesday, April 21st. So if you have any information that you're looking for and you're missing it from this video, this long-winded video, please excuse me. We'll be going over things in class next week, and we'll also be checking out things on Canvas. So if you ever need me, let me know, and I'm ready to answer any questions. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.